Hello, everyone. Welcome to Celsius 233, your go-to place for fiction book summaries. Today, we will explore The Depths of the Demon's Spell by Hume Nisbet. The Demon's Spell, written by Scottish-Australian author Hume Nisbet and published in 1894, is a horror short story that taps into the spiritualism craze of the late 19th century. Set against the backdrop of Victorian England, the story blends themes of the supernatural with elements of psychological terror. Nisbet, an author known for his tales of the macabre, creates a chilling narrative that explores the thin boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds. Plot summary. In the dim, flickering light of a London parlor, a group of people gathered for a séance, their hands resting on a table, waiting for something unseen. It was the height of the spiritualism craze, and séances were a common evening entertainment, drawing skeptics and believers alike. Among the assembled was a man who had been invited by a friend, intrigued but doubtful. The friend promised him an evening unlike any other, led by a young trance medium, a girl reputed for her beauty and her strange, otherworldly gift. As they waited, the medium entered silently, a delicate figure who seemed to float into the room. She took her place at the table, her presence immediately casting a strange spell over the group. The dim light made her appear almost ethereal, her pale face framed by shadows. As the group began their séance, singing hymns to set the mood, an eerie quiet fell over the room, and the medium, her head bowed, joined in the chorus. With hands placed on the table, they waited for the first sign of a spirit. The medium remained still, but soon, the table began to tremble, soft knocks echoed in the room, and the air grew thick with an unexplainable tension. As the lights dimmed even further, the medium's features seemed to change, her youthful face darkening as if something older and more sinister had taken control. In a distant voice, she began to speak. It was not the voice of a girl, but of a tormented soul, one that claimed to have suffered a violent death in the foggy, dangerous streets of Whitechapel. The voice spoke of her life, one filled with hardship and misery. She had wandered the streets alone on the night of her death, cold, hungry, and desperate. That night, a figure approached her in the fog, a man with a soft voice and an air of kindness. But his kindness turned to cruelty, and in the murk of the streets, her life was stolen by an unseen force that choked her, leaving her body mutilated and discarded in the gutter. As the medium continued, the room felt as if it were closing in on itself, the horror of the spirit's tale seeping into the air, gripping everyone present. When the séance finally ended, the medium collapsed into her chair, her face soft and innocent once again. She had no memory of what had passed, as though the spirit that had spoken through her had left no trace. The others, still shaken by the events, dispersed into the cold night, but for one man, the sense of dread had not lifted. Something had followed him home. As midnight struck, he lay awake in his room, the gaslight burning low. The night outside was quiet, but inside, the air felt thick with a presence he could not shake. It began subtly, a faint tug at the edges of his blankets. Slowly, his bedclothes were pulled to the floor, as though an invisible hand had taken them. His heart pounded in his chest as he sat up, realizing he was not alone. A soft voice, barely more than a whisper, echoed in the room, urging him to act quickly to save the girl, the trance medium, from a fate that awaited her. Though he hesitated, fear overtaking him, the voice persisted, and he rose, throwing on his clothes. He grabbed an old Candian dagger from his table, its blade sharp despite being a relic of his travels. Without knowing how, he found himself rushing through the snowy streets, guided by something unseen. The voice, faint but insistent, led him through twisting alleys, past snow-covered buildings, until he stood before a silent square where a single house waited, its windows dimly lit. The man pushed through the door and found his way up the stairs, moving as though in a dream. The air inside was heavy, almost suffocating, and as he entered a bedroom, he saw the medium struggling, her face pale as the same dark entity from the séance wrapped its clawed hands around her throat. The room swirled with shadows, and the demon's form seemed to shift, part muscle, part mist, its features barely human. Without hesitation, the man lunged forward, slashing at the creature with his dagger. Each strike seemed to wound the thing, streaks of blood appearing in the air as the demon howled in silence. As he fought, the medium gasped for air, her body limp in the demon's grasp. Finally, with a final blow, the creature began to dissipate, its claws retracting as it faded into nothingness, leaving only a strange coin clutched in the medium's hand. The girl collapsed, freed from its grip, as the house erupted into chaos, her screams awakening the other residents. The man fled, stumbling down the stairs and back into the snow-covered street. His breath came in ragged gasps, but his task was not yet complete. Across the square, a figure lay crumpled in the snow. It was the same man he had glimpsed earlier, standing in the shadows, watching the house. Now his body lay lifeless, and as the man approached, he saw the unmistakable signs of the demon's work. The figure's throat was slashed from ear to ear, his face pockmarked and twisted with evil, matching the demon's description perfectly. The man recoiled in horror as the snow around the body slowly turned crimson. The clock struck 1, its echo carrying through the empty streets, and from somewhere in the distance, the sound of church bells rang out, heralding a Christmas morning unlike any other. He stood for a moment, watching as the blood soaked into the snow, before he turned and vanished into the night, leaving behind the echoes of a terrible encounter with the unseen. Hope you had fun. There's more where that came from. Explore other books by Hume Nisbet. Find them below or search Celsius 233. Remember, while our summaries capture the essence, they can never replace the full experience of reading the book. If this summary intrigued you, consider diving into the complete story, buy the book, and immerse yourself in Hume Nisbet's original work. Bye-bye, take care, have fun.